So the topic of this study is class 2-3 obesity leads to significantly worse outcomes following minimally invasive transforaminal lumbar interbody fusion. These are disclosures, none of which are relevant to this talk. Right, so if you look at the spine literature, there are various studies that have analyzed postoperative outcomes in obese patients following minimally invasive spine surgery. But if we specifically look at the patient population with a BMI of over 35, the evidence is still largely lacking. So the objective of this study was to analyze clinical outcomes, recovery kinetics, fusion rates, and complications following MIST-LIF in this obese class 2-3 patient group, and also compare these outcomes with the other BMI groups. Right, so this was a retrospective cohort study. We included patients who underwent primary single-level MIST-LIF for degenerative conditions and had a minimum of 1 year follow-up. We developed 4 patient cohorts on the basis of BMI, normal, overweight, class 1 obesity, and class 2-3 obesity. In terms of outcome measures, we looked at various patient-reported outcome measures such as ODI, VAS, SF12, PCS, minimal clinically important difference, patient-acceptable symptom state, global rating change, return to activities, and finally, complication and reoperation rates. 2 postoperative time points were defined, early being less than 6 months and late being more than 6 months. Right, so 390 patients were included, 119 were of normal BMI, 160 were overweight, 67 class 1 obesity, and 44 class 2-3 obesity. Now, if we look at the patient-reported outcome measures, so if we look at the preoperative baseline, the class 2-3 obesity group had significantly worse VS back to begin with. If we look at the other preoperative prompts, there were no significant difference between the BMI groups. Now, if we look at the postoperative prompts, the first important thing, even class 2-3 obesity group showed significant improvement. So, like the first thing I would like to exclude that, okay, class 2-3 obesity does not mean an exclusion criteria for undergoing an MIST-LIF. But if we compare the postoperative prompts at more than 6 months of class 2-3 obese patients with the other BMI groups, so all the prompts, ODI, VS back, VS leg, and PCS, these were found to be significantly worse compared to the other BMI groups. If you look at the minimal clinically important difference and patient-acceptable symptom state achievement rates, so these were also significantly lower for the class 2-3 group. If you look at global rating change, so this was basically asking the patient that, okay, compared to pre-op, do you feel better, do you feel the same, or do you feel worse? And importantly, this metric did not show any significant difference. More than 80% of patients felt better in all the groups, including the class 2-3 obesity group. If you look at the fusion rate, so class 2-3 obesity group had a lower fusion rate. However, this was not found to be statistically significant. Now, in terms of return to activities, so firstly, post-op length of stay. This was significantly higher for the class 2-3 obese patients. In terms of return to driving, so class 2-3 obese patients took significantly longer to return back to driving. In terms of return to work and discontinuation of narcotics post-operatively, there was no significant difference. Complications, minimal, and importantly, no significant difference between all these BMI groups. Now, we also performed a regression analysis, and this suggested a dose-dependent association of obesity with achievement of an acceptable symptom state after surgery. So class 2 obesity patients were 3.7 times less likely to achieve an acceptable symptom state. Class 3 were 5 times less likely. And in terms of the other groups, class 1 obesity, overweight, and metabolic syndrome, these did not have any significant association. So coming to the conclusions, firstly, class 2-3 obese patients did improve after surgery. 80% felt better compared to pre-op. But in comparison with the other BMI groups, this group did have significantly worse clinical outcomes and slower recovery kinetics. Now, there is a concept incoming of pre-optimization through weight loss. This can be through medications, GLP-1 antagonists, or bariatric surgery. However, we do not have enough evidence right now, but this may be the future for us going ahead. So, yeah, thank you. And this paper got published in the Spine Journal recently, so you can check it there. Thank you.
Good. Any questions?
What do you attribute the lower fusion rates in the obesity 2 and 3 groups to?
Right, sir. I mean, we do not have an exact explanation. But I feel that, okay, like in terms of just being overweight, I feel it may have a role, but I do not have an exact explanation. The stats did show that, okay, it was 67% for class 2-3 obesity, and I think like more than 85% for the other groups. I do not have an explanation. And it was not found to be statistically significant, so I don't know. Like, I do not have a proper explanation.
It was a nice study. See, I will, few concerns. You said 80% improved significantly, okay, the obese group as well as the non-obese group.
Correct.
And then, but their satisfaction is not to the level.
Yeah.
So why, if the prompts are good, why it is not translating into their satisfaction?
So, sir, in terms of satisfaction, I feel, so in terms of just the global rating change where we assess the satisfaction rates, there was no significant difference.
Does the global patient satisfaction include the peri-op factors as well? Because a lot of obese patients have a peri-op challenges.
Correct.
You know,
Yeah.
that would translate to completely unsatisfactory outcome towards the. But though the PRAMs, their activity levels are good now.
Right.
What happened 1 year before or 6 months before during the admission time? Some infections, some discharge, some changes, some satisfaction would affect. And second, your fusion rate is little concerning. If your fusion rate is what going to dictate your long-term outcome. If your fusion rate is 67, that is going to reflect in my prompts.
Right.
Okay. So there is slight, this thing. And how did you assess your fusion?
So, sir, we
Dynamic X-rays, plain X-rays?
No. So this study was performed at the Hospital for Special Surgery in New York, and there the standard of care is to have a post-op CT scan at 1 year for every patient. But like in terms of the total number of patients, I think we had like 350 or 390 patients in this paper. Out of those patients, only half, like I think 175 had a post-op CT scan. So yeah, I mean, yeah.
So then how did you assess the fusion rate?
On the CT. So the fusion rate is only for half the sample. We did not have the data for the rest half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Nice presentation, doctor. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Sameer Nagpal to present his outcomes of unilateral biportal endoscopy in the obese patient, in the lumbar spine patient.
So good morning, everyone. I would like to thank all the judges, all the faculty to allow me for such a wonderful opportunity. So topic for today is the outcome of UB in overweight and obese patients. So these are the challenges that we face in obese patient undergoing discectomy or decompression surgeries. So patient-related factors, there is high rate of recurrence, and for surgeon-related factor, the surgical duration, the retraction, the field of view, the complications, and the operative time. So these are the challenges. These are documented one: higher rate of DVT, increased risk of surgical site infections. So there is almost threefold increase in wound complication and surgical site infection. So how UB can help? So first is the visualization, the direct visualization, and the maneuverability. So yeah, so we included the patients with the BMI of more than 30 and lumbar canal stenosis without any dynamic instability. We excluded every dynamic instability and listhesis, high-grade listhesis. So what we measured was the VAS score, the functional outcomes in terms of VAS score, claudication, and standing tolerance. And in radiology, we did see the amount of facet resection and the dural expansion. So this is the technique. Based on the site of extrusion, the central, paracentral, we decided our approach. For central and paracentral, we decided to go for ipsilateral UBE, and for contralateral, for foraminal disc, we did contralateral UBE, and for extraforaminal, we had to do para-UBE. So this is the slight overview of the technique. Ipsilateral for a paracentral, the contralateral for the foraminal, and the para-UB. inferior and superior migrated disc can be tackled with this technique, but you have to change your portals accordingly. This is the docking point, the red dot, and these are the portals. The superior one is the viewing portal and the inferior is the working portal. So for a central disc non-migrated, this should be the entry point. These are the entry points. But for inferior migration, we can always change our docking points. Same goes for the superior migration. So other things to keep in mind from a standard UBE surgery is the distance between the portals. As you see, this is an obese patient. This is the lumbar spine. If you extend these portals, then you will see the distance between the portals is more than 5 centimeters. So even this is okay, as long as you can dock and the distance between your hands are good enough and you can dock at the same point, triangulate at the same point, then it is okay. So we included 30 patients. So average BMI was, mean BMI was 32. So pre-op claudication distance was around 200 meters and mean hospital duration was 2.9 days. Average surgical duration was around 90 minutes. These are the VAS scores at the end of 6 months and the ODI scores. This is the mean dural expansion. We could achieve around 80 mm² of mean expansion. And we had one dural injury with less than 2 mm, and we did not explore the patient, and we were able to go out without any neurological deficit. This is a case example. A BMI of more than 42. Pre-op. I think video is not working. This is the 1.5 year follow-up with no complications. This is the immediate post-operative mobilization video. So to conclude, UB is a safe and effective approach and has comparable outcomes when compared to non-obese patients. Thank you so much. Limitations of my study would be a longer follow-up and a larger sample size. Thank you.